From the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, broadcasting from AM and FM stations around the country. Welcome to the Small Business Administration award-winning School for Startups Radio, where we talk all things small business and entrepreneurship. Now, here is your host, the guy that believes anyone can be a successful entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion, Jim Beach.
Welcome back to School for Startups Radio. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope you are using this time to somehow make yourself better prepared to go out and become an excellent entrepreneur, to support your family, and to just live the lifestyle that you've always been dreaming of. I am incredibly honored to introduce our next guest. Her name is Winblad, and she is a legend. She is one of the top venture capitalists in the world, and because she is a woman, she's one of the top female venture capitalists in the world. We're so excited to learn about her, more about venture capital, and of course, being a woman in Silicon Valley. She is the managing director of Winblad Venture Partners, which started, about 20 years ago, I think. Before that, she had a software programming career. She was actually a programmer, which is good because Winblad specializes on software. She started off with a job at the Federal Reserve, and after that she started her own company called Open Systems, and I imagine that led to her venture career. We will find out. Anne, thank you so much for being with us. It's a huge honor.
Thank you for that warm and generous welcome.
Well, you deserve it. You've had an amazing career. When you were 20 years old, becoming a programmer, and venture capital didn't even exist then, did it? It was sort of there. There were one or two firms, I think, but it was almost a brand new industry, wasn't it?
Pretty much it was a brand new industry, and it was starting here in California, and it was mostly focused on the budding semiconductor industry and hardware. It would take a long time before the venture industry decided that software was really an investable category.
And so was it a huge shock to the world when you and John Hummer started Winblad to purely focus on software?
There's a reason it's called Silicon Valley versus Software Valley, although that's really changing. I think
Great.
The biggest shock for everyone when John and I went out to raise venture capital is I'm 5'2" tall and John is 6'10". He was a first-round draft pick in the NBA out of Princeton. So we looked a little bit like a circus act out there raising capital, and then we sounded just as crazy when we were saying, and we're only going to invest in software. Investors were concerned that without hard assets, that the assets, who were the programmers, the creative thinkers, the intellectual capital, could just walk out the door at night, and then once we handed our money over to them, that it would be hard for us to protect the intellectual property, which was the people.
Right. Well, that, it certainly didn't turn out that way. You turned out to be right and had an amazing career because of it. Let me ask you this, though. Are we now at the end of software as being a good investable business? Does the world of apps, does the way everything is changing, obviously we'll always need software, but is it less sexy now because of all of the other things that have come along in technology?
Last year there was about $29 billion invested by traditional venture capitalists, including Winblad and the hundreds of venture capitalists around the country. About 60% of those dollars were invested in what we call pure software companies, meaning that it was people generating code. When you look at innovation, it appears when we look backwards that innovation is always there and gradually growing and growing and growing, but it flattens out at times. And then it thrusts forward when we have technical changes. So right now we are in an extraordinary period of innovation in software. We have to look for really big opportunities, and we have to look for lots of change. If you look at some of the biggest companies out there today, the new platforms, Facebook was started in 2004, Twitter in 2006, Amazon and Amazon Web Services, the part that controls the software, was only created in 2006. Android, the operating system that drives most of the smartphones that we have today, was not delivered until 2007. So we're on a brand new era of vibrant new platforms. The hardware guys like to talk about Moore's Law, that you can get twice as fast every 2 years. So right now we have larger, cheaper storage, solid-state disks, flash memory, faster, cheaper memory, much greater processing power, faster, wider networks, and the piece de resistance is smaller devices and greater mobility. So consumers and workers are more mobile while still being connected, resulting in devices and sensors that continuously emit data and create new opportunities for software. So we are in a high-powered period of innovation, and all of this leads to software opportunities.
Okay, great. Let me ask you this then. At the other end of the extreme, with the WhatsApp purchase, I was sitting next to someone when that was announced, and he was like, oh, there was a typo. It's supposed to be 1.9 billion. No, in fact, it was 19 billion. Are we therefore in the beginning of yet another bubble?
There are always deals that look like outliers. We're really not in a bubble this time. If you look at what's happening in the IPO markets, and we are taking companies public, the focus there is primarily traditional enterprise software companies. Today, when we take a company public, much different than 1999, where everybody wanted to own a piece of one of these new companies. Institutional investors will not even touch a company unless they're leaning into about $100 million in revenues and can demonstrate that they are fast growth companies. The acquisition you referred to, which was done by Facebook has an extraordinary valuation. So that deal was done not just in U.S. currency, but in what we'll call Facebook dollars, or their stock value. And they have a lot of currency in their stock to be able to acquire these companies. What is interesting about this is that the investors were willing to take the Facebook stock, believing that even at that valuation, there was still more growth in that stock. And as you might know today, Facebook made a big announcement about a new ad format, their new video ads that's been covered globally. They did this also in partnership with one of our young companies called Asymmetrics, which does the analytics on those ads before they're even launched. So when we look around at how the market map is changing for software, we're going to have a hard time figuring out, who paid what in what valuation range for what. But there are a number of these high-valued companies, more recently public, Facebook, Splunk, good examples, that will be doing acquisitions as part of their growth strategy because they have the cash and the stock value to do so.
This is a hard question. You might not be able to answer this. If you were on the Facebook board, would you have voted for $19 billion for a no-revenue company like WhatsApp?
I can't really answer that. Clearly, the company has not willy-nilly been acquiring things. They have a real seasoned management team. Even Zuckerberg is getting more seasoned as time goes on. And clearly they saw reasons to acquire this strategically, probably both offensively and defensively.
I think it's a defensive purchase, maybe more than anything else, and that's a really interesting point. Let me ask you this. When a entrepreneur comes in and gets a meeting with you, what's the number one mistake that entrepreneurs make when they get in front of a venture capitalist?
Well, when you go out and get seed investment, the seed investors who invest a small amount of money in your company may be investing on the strength of a particular product or idea. So entrepreneurs pitching for seed investment are really talking a lot about their product, their invention. When you get to a venture capitalist, we're putting in bigger dollars immediately and over time. And we have to look for companies where the products can create big companies. So the most significant mistake entrepreneurs make in front of us is they treat us like seed investors, and they keep talking about their product. They do not talk about how they can create a large company and really what the market opportunity is for that product or service and how they have a competitive advantage to engage with that market. I like to quote Warren Buffett by saying the market bats last. So I need to know as much about your markets, size, how you engage with it, why you think there's a market there, as I do about your products. I see lots of great product ideas, but not as many big company ideas.
Interesting. And of course, as entrepreneurs, we always hear how the team is so important. And are there companies that you wanted to invest in, but you didn't because you just didn't think the CEO, the CFO was muster? They didn't have the skill set?
You asked a very important question. It doesn't make any difference how much capital we put in these companies if we don't have the right intellectual capital matched with the financial capital. Because all in all, it is the quality of the people that drives the results. Most of the entrepreneurs we fund are leading companies for the first time. They have not actually started a company before. They've never managed a lot of people before. And so there's a lot of risk with these entrepreneurs, but they are the outliers that are creating these companies. So we have to assess people's skills far in advance of experience skills. All we are is good pattern matchers. But we do look for a few indicators. One is, do they seem like they need control over everything? That's not scalable. Two, are they going to have a trusted relationship with all of their stakeholders, their employees, their partners, their customers, as well as their investors? Can we all grab an oar and row together? And three, do they have the intellectual and physical stamina to go the distance in building a company? It is very hard to build a company from scratch. Today, one of our companies, MuleSoft, announced a $50 million capital raise at an extraordinary valuation, about $800 million. That company was a walk-in led by a guy named Ross Mason, a developer from Malta. Ross is still playing a key role in that business. There's an extraordinary CEO we helped recruit, Greg Schott. And, Ross, over time, has demonstrated that he doesn't need to be running the company. He can play an extraordinary role. He can attract people to the company. And the company was started in December of 2006 with 2 people. This year, they're hiring close to 500 new employees, in addition to the over 300 they already have. So we're talking 7 years into it. Now the company is a big company, raising big money, hiring lots of people, and will be a long-time member of the software market map. But it took a lot of physical and intellectual stamina to do that. So we try to assess the entrepreneurs on those qualities as well.
Let me ask you this. Does a woman have a 0.1% chance better than a man of getting money from you simply because you are a woman? 0.1%. That's all I'm asking. Not 1%, not 10%, 0.1%.
Since I've had many roles in the software industry, from individual contributor to a CEO myself to the co-founder of a venture firm, I've always viewed the industry as, you create your own meritocracy. We just issued a term sheet a couple of days ago to a brand new company. I can't say the name because it's not announced yet, and it's a woman CEO. And I proudly watched my own partners, my male partners, watch this woman present. She stood at the head of the table. Her team was around her. And, she just knocked it out of the park, both in her presentation and in her references when they were checked out. And I got no sense that she was being judged by her gender. At the same time, we don't see women like this very often come in and pitch to us. It's not a matter of getting a better chance. It's where are they? If we look at most of our CEOs have advanced degrees. Only about 25% of the MBAs and MBA classes today are women. Most of the women that are getting funded by us, not all, have technical degrees undergrad. By the time people graduate from these computer science with these computer science degrees, only about 13 or 14% of them are women. So we're dealing with a very small and picked over herd by the time we get a chance to see the women CEOs. So there are some really important choices women have to make. If they want to be in this leaders in this information economy, we're just not talking a small software market here. We're talking a global information economy. Most jobs are going to require skills that are technical. They
Right.
have to strap in and pick a STEM major, science, technology, engineering, or math, and gut it out. It doesn't make any difference what their grades are. It makes a difference what they learn. They're likely going to need advanced degrees to compete for the bigger jobs, including the CEOs of our companies. So they need to find a way to get their advanced degrees as well, even if it's an MBA, not a PhD. We need more women out there, but it's not us calling them out necessarily. It's themselves calling themselves out of the mix even before they get to college.
Right. Very interesting, Ann. How do I get in front of you, Ann? What's the best way for an entrepreneur to get in with a prominent VC like yourself? And let me say this, Ann, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I try to go after venture capital frequently. I've raised some in the past. I would be afraid to call you or Kleiner Perkins. There are just some names that are so prestigious that I would just be in awe and afraid to call simply because I'm not worthy. How does someone get in front of a Kleiner Perkins or a Hummer Winblad, the top firms and the top VC in the world?
The best way is to do a little bit of research. Look through our portfolios. We have websites, and see who we've already funded if you know one of those people. If one of our funded founders or CEOs pings me and says, I talked to this great entrepreneur, you should give them a look, we'll put them at the top of the stack. Look up the lawyers we know, the accountants we know, all of the people surrounding us who we're working closely with. When they make a recommendation, you go to the top of the stack. I, in particular, go through every plan that's sent to me and try to get back to him. And occasionally fund a plan and a company that has had no introduction. In the case of MuleSoft that I mentioned earlier with the big financing today, that company was referred by an industry analyst, an esteemed industry analyst. In the case of Facebook's announcement today on their video ads and their partnership with one of the companies, Asymmetrics just sent me an email. And it was a very compelling plan about video analytics. I'd not seen one like it before. The pedigree of the team was not known to me. One was an ad person, one was an analytics person, and I invited them to come and present. I think they were a little shocked that I just answered their email and invited them. And that company has done extraordinarily well, including their announcement today with Facebook. So some venture capitalists are more open than others to, we are supposed to be opportunists. Our job is not to predict the future, but to purchase it. And I believe that you really got to be very open-minded, not build biases here of who you should fund. They all must be referenced, but it's a lot of hard work. So you need to be patient when you send a plan to us, not petulant, and try your best to get an introduction. If not, do your absolute best to communicate to me or any other venture capitalist why this is a big market opportunity and what unfair competitive advantage you have with your product, your team, or your go-to-market strategy.
All right. Excellent. What about, I'm here in Atlanta, and here in Atlanta, we have buttons that say Silicon Valley with a big X through them, trying just to say that there are cool things going on outside of the Valley. Do you think that there are cool things going on outside of the Valley? Do I have to move to California if I want to become a huge, big success?
Well, we have investments in Utah. We've done quite well there, historically with a company called Omniture. We know our investors in a company called Inside Sales, another fast-growth company, and Domo, Josh, who founded Omniture's second company. We have investments in Minneapolis. We were investors in a search engine marketing company called Optimine, also doing quite well, led by a scientist out of the University of Minnesota. We have investments in Boston, and we have investments in Toronto, as well as Silicon Valley. Toronto's a hotbed right now. The Canadians have gotten extremely organized, and it's really the place venture capitalists are going, the hotspot. Why Silicon Valley? It's it's Mesopotamia of entrepreneurship. It's ground zero. You're kept on your toes here. Your bigger partners are likely here. You're competing for the best talent here. All the money's here. So it's a competitive advantage. So when we look at companies outside of the Bay Area, even if we're looking at companies in New York and Boston, we have to say, is that the best company, or is there one close enough in Silicon Valley? Even in our companies in Utah, which we've been greatly successful in, and in Minneapolis, we really have to hunt hard for talent. The population's not as dense, and the technical population, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur there like they do here. The risk profile of the entrepreneurs themselves is not the same as here, where people are willing to risk it all and do not view failure as a horrible end game, but as a learning experience to the next bigger game. So we have to work harder in all those other places. We don't ignore them. We've had a great investment in Atlanta in recent years called Employees, which was a SaaS benefits company, now a large part of ADP. It ended with a fantastic acquisition. But we didn't go back to Atlanta right away because we had to work really hard to get the talent base there, to make sure that they stayed in front of partners who are mostly here and other places. They did a fantastic job, and we had a great outcome. But if we find better deals here, we'll take them first.
What percent of your deals and are home runs? What percent go to zero, and what percent are just middling? And you did okay, but you didn't knock it out of the park.
Well, I'd say for the most part, the 10Xers, are all in all for us and others, probably greater than 10%. I haven't added them all up because we've done well. We raised relatively small funds at a time. We don't raise billion-dollar funds. We raise $200 to $250 million funds. We're investing our sixth fund right now. So a 5X is a good return for us. We don't have to either do boom or bust. We can really make very good decisions along the way. Is this a company that should be an IPO, or should we take advantage of acquisition offers that come our way? Yes, we have to find homes for companies. That's why we're called venture capitalists. Every day I wish I was just a capitalist, but that big V looms large.
Right.
And they're hard decisions. Sometimes, in most cases, getting a negative return of zero is very, very rare. Getting a negative return of not getting quite all our money back is less rare. And that's where we have to make a determination, is this going to take too long? Were we too early? And does it make sense to have this company be acquired into a larger company where they can leverage the technology immediately and, basically participate years from now in the future opportunity? So they're hard calls. I'm still searching for the venture capital handbook, so I know what the ground rules are. But I believe it's being rewritten every minute, probably as we speak.
Right.
It is really hard building companies from scratch. Our typical company we fund at the A round has 4 people in it. And,
And we have run out of time. I am so grateful for your insight. How can people follow you? I know you're a LinkedIn influencer. What, maybe a Twitter handle? How would you like people to learn more from you?
Well, they can follow me on LinkedIn. I do post there quite often and have a good set of connections who make a lot of comments about what I post. And LinkedIn does a great job on their influencer program. If they have a real business opportunity for me, they can email me directly at humwin.com. Just give me about a week to get back to you because I do get over 1,000 emails a day.
Wow. Ann, thank you so much for being with us. It was an honor. Thank you for the time. During this interview, you got 212 more emails, so you need to get back to work. Thanks a lot, Ann.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.